Hello and welcome back to another history video. And this time I will be looking at something that many people haven't really heard about or are not really sure what it's about. Now, basically there's a bunch of different types of divisions that every army had in World War II. And for the Germans, many of them are quite famous, or at least quite well known to the World War II enthusiasts. You have your normal infantry divisions, which were later renamed to Grenadier divisions, and then to Volksgrenadier divisions, and then later back to infantry divisions. But that's neither here nor there. You have your Panzer divisions, and of course also specialist divisions like Fallschirmjäger divisions, Gebirgsjäger divisions. But there's also one division type that I've almost never seen represented in any World War II game. Certainly, they were never in any of the combat mission games that I like to play here. They are sometimes in Gravity Team Tactics, although in their earlier incarnation, and we also never had them in FH2, which is so-called Jäger divisions. Just not Gebirgsjäger, not Fallschirmjäger, just Jäger divisions. So basically, what is that? Well, Jäger divisions were first created in late 1941. Um, and at that point, they were called light infantry or leichte Infanterie divisions. And they were basically created for fighting in the kind of hard terrain that doesn't require really mountain specialists, for example, like the Gebirgsjäger. But at the same time, that isn't really conductive to mechanized operations. So swamps, mountains that aren't alpine, but the kind of forested, medium-sized mountains that you have in many areas. That kind of terrain, basically, where it's kind of hard to move around, but normal infantry of fit young men can basically do it. In mid 1942, these were renamed from light infantry divisions to Jäger divisions, and some normal infantry divisions were also converted into Jäger divisions as well. So what we will look at first is what did a division like this, a forest fighting division, actually look like. As an example, I have chosen 5th Jäger Division, which you can see here. And this division, first of all, this is from mid 1943, but the division looked like this from the start of its existence. And what's already interesting here is there's only 2 regiments here. Normally, an infantry division at this point of the war had 3 regiments. They only had 2. Now, later in the war, all the infantry divisions were brought to this standard here with fewer infantry. But at this point, this was kind of unique. The other main difference is in the artillery. They had one fewer artillery grouping here. And the artillery itself was not always, but sometimes different as well. For one thing, what you have here, this symbol means that this is a mountain gun, so a 7.5 centimeter Gebirgshaubitze or mountain howitzer. So they had 4 batteries of these, and then normal infantry howitzers as well, so 10.5 centimeter light field howitzers and 15 centimeter heavy ones. So this is already quite unique. Basically, in terms of artillery, they were equipped like a Gebirgsjäger division, right? So there's that. The rest of that is pretty standard, and what we can see here, if we look at the infantry, is while the light machine gun number does vary a little bit, and note that 89%, 89%, 86%, these companies were basically roughly up to strength. But they had in most of them around 12 or a little bit less light machine guns. This indicates to me that at this point they still use the old 1941 organization of infantry, which means they had 4 squads in each of their platoons instead of 3 like later. So they still had 4 squads, each of them with a light machine gun. Now, in some of them they have fewer, so this might indicate that these had fewer squads due to losses, basically. Yeah. They also still use the light 5 centimeter mortars that were being phased out, but they're still in the diagram here. So each platoon would have one light 5 centimeter mortar in support. Now what's interesting here, and this is where these divisions start to look a bit different from a normal infantry division, is for some reason, and I've never seen this before, they actually put the machine pistols, MP, into this diagram. And they had quite a few actually. You can see the normal rifle companies had like 26, 24, 25, something in this area of submachine guns or machine pistols. So these would be MP40s mostly, which is actually quite a bit more than a normal infantry division had. And at this point, an infantry squad was still supposed to have only one MP40 in a normal infantry division. I should say at this point, by the way, we don't actually have the TOE for these, so a lot of this is kind of guesswork and working backwards from these diagrams, but it appears to me that the light infantry divisions and later Jäger divisions were supposed to have a lot more submachine guns. And even at this early stage. Which makes sense if you have a division that is specialized in fighting in rough terrain and especially in forests, like in Russia, then having more submachine guns makes a lot of sense. But as you will soon see, there's actually a bit more to this than that. Now, this is a normal divisional document. What we do have actually is way more detailed documents for this. Namely, we have one that actually shows which weapons they used per regiment. And let me just tell you, that one is quite interesting and has some really uncommon weapons. Alright, this is the document that I meant. So these are the regimental weapons here. So you can see the different regiments. For example, here the two line infantry regiments or Jäger regiments, and then artillery, recon, and so on. These are the weapons down here. I will scroll down the whole list, don't worry about it. And obviously there's different ones, bayonets, and each of them have 3 categories for each of the regiments. Soll, how many they should have. Ist, how many they actually had. Fehl, how many were missing. And so we have here bayonets, pistols, not that interesting. So MPs. As I said, we don't know the actual TOE these were organized by, but they had more submachine guns. And according to this, they were actually sometimes under strength with that. So they were supposed to have in each regiment 266 submachine guns, and they had a few less. In this case, they had one more. But generally speaking, this indicates to me, as I said, that this mystery TOE that we don't have means they were equipped with more submachine guns. So, okay, so far, so only slightly unusual, but it gets better. Again, this is, not again, but this is, by the way, from the 1st October 1943. If we scroll down, it gets interesting. MP43A, MP43B. Now, last time, or rather in the last video, I looked at the MKB-42 tests, and we looked at the 93rd Infantry Division for that. At the beginning of that video, I rattled down a list of divisions that were supposed to take part in the MKB-42 prototype testing. Turns out, some of them did not actually receive them, so the plan was changed at some point. Namely, the 212th Infantry Division never got any prototypes. However, the 5th Jäger and the 28th Jäger Division at this point received these prototypes. And we actually have the documents for that as well. Sadly, this is torn, but this is a document that says which weapons actually were received by the division, and it says here 220 Maschinenkarabiner 43A als Truppenversuch for troop testing or for field testing, and then also some other things that they received. So, yeah, they got 220 of these. Let's see how many were still left. Now, since we're back here, as you can see, if we go just to the end, they received 219 MP43A and 1 MP43B. Now, this tracks with the prototype testing, 220 in all. Apparently, until the 1st of October 1943, they did not lose any of their prototype equipment here. And the MP43B was basically the non-prototype. That was the closed-bolt production version, which was later called the MP43-1, and then later the MP44, and then the SDG-44. Basically, when they tested, as I said last time as well, the MKB-42 which is this one, was already considered to be obsolete, and they received some of the actual production model as well. But as you can see, the prototypes were used by the Jäger regiments, 84 in this one, 85 in this one, and also by the recon troops. And the sole production version was in the Feld Ausbildungsbattalion, which basically means in the Field Replacement Battalion. So why was it there? What did they do with their one production version? Well, I'm glad you asked. This is a document from the 17th September 1943. And it's a document by or an order to the Field Replacement Battalion to basically put on a show for high-ranking officers of the division. And the point of this show is to show new weapons, vehicles, and equipment, and to show that in front of the officers in one big show. Basically, like, you know, I work at a school. Basically, like when you get all the kids together to do a recital in front of the principal or something, right? And basically, these weapons were to be shown in scharfen Schuss. That means they were to be shot with normal ammunition in front of them. There's some details here of who does what, and it also says later that the officers were to be given the chance to shoot the weapons themselves. And if we look here, there's a detail there are details what do they actually want to show. And we have here for the normal Field Replacement Battalion K98K with ZF41, K98K with ZF4, so with a 4-time scope, G41, and down here Machine Karabiner 43A and B. So here they don't call them Machine Pistole but Machine Karabiner. Some other stuff as well that we will later talk about as well. A few little details here. Stielgranate für schweres Infanteriegeschütz. These were, you know how for 3.7 centimeter pucks they had these rocket-looking grenades that you could put over the barrel to shoot at tanks, like heat grenades. Turns out they also made them for the 150 millimeter heavy infantry gun, which looked ridiculous. Then they were supposed to show the new Stucks with the long Pak 40. Several mines, and also quite interesting for the pioneers here, Pioneer Battalion 5, they were supposed to demonstrate the Abwehr-Flammenwerfer 42, which is a remote-controlled Fugas kind of flamethrower. I think these were also actually in place at Omaha Beach. Basically, you could like press a button and they would spew flames at attackers, that kind of thing. So some interesting stuff in here. But my initial point, of course, was the MP43B that was here was probably shown off during this event and shot by the high-ranking officers to demonstrate the new technology here. Okay, carrying on. K98K, no surprises here. We're missing a few. K98K scoped. Also, they didn't have enough of these. Then they had G41s, not a lot of them, and they also weren't supposed to have a lot, just 36 for each regiment, so only like a handful for each company. And they didn't even have that many of them. However, we have actually more documents here, because the Germans also had to post daily losses of equipment. So these are the daily losses of one of these days, and if you look at this, they lost one G41W and one really rare G41M Mauser. So this is the failed Mauser version, which apparently Jäger Regiment 75 had on hand. It says here that the recoil guide thingy is damaged and they don't have any replacement parts. They also lost a Zielfernrohrgewehr 41, which might be a scoped G41. I think it's more likely it's the K98K with the new ZF41 scope. One MP38 was lost during a attack, or during a, let's call it patrol or something. And they also, at the first time, lost an MP43A here. They can't repair it because of a lack of spare parts again. No replacement parts and some other stuff as well. So yeah, to sum it up so far, this division used MKB-42Hs, they used G41Ms. So far this sounds like the perfect division for one of these gun collectors, because that's a lot of expensive stuff they had. Miscellaneous rifles here, rifle grenade launchers, they had enough of those. And then we come to the light machine guns. So what we have here first is these are the standard issue light machine guns, light machine gun 34 and MG42. And as you can see, most of the ones they had were MG34. The MG42 was just entering use in this division. And as you can see, there were some that were missing here. That said, they had some really unusual MGs that they had in use. First of all, MG34/41, 2 in the first regiment, 3 in the second. This is an interesting weapon. Alright, we're in game in Forgotten Orc 2, and I'm holding here an MG34/41. This is a shortened version of the MG34, so the barrel is shortened, which is of course useful in, say, a division that is fighting in the forests of the Eastern Front. And at the same time, the firing rate was juiced up to basically MG42 levels, right? So it shot at, I think, up to 1,500 rounds per minute, something like that. It varied to a degree. My point is, it shot really, really fast. Actually, let's deploy this and I can demonstrate. So yeah, this is fairly realistic for this weapon. So it's basically a shortened MG34 that masquerades as an MG42 in terms of firepower. These weapons are also sometimes found in the equipment of Jäger divisions. So apparently all the kind of light infantry divisions were more likely to receive them, although I think we also have proof that some normal infantry divisions had them. But yeah, generally speaking, they're kind of a unicorn gun that only appears in mid-war, and after that, obviously with the MG42 taking over, production wasn't really carried out longer. Now, there's more interesting stuff here. So, first of all, light machine gun 13. These are the pre-war Weimar Republic type light machine guns, which are basically the early version of the MG34. And as you can see, they actually, in the normal Jäger regiments, they had quite a few of these. This plus means that 2 of them were used as bodenständige Waffen, or basically static weapons, and apparently they were installed into steel cupulas somewhere, which is quite interesting. And one thing you can also see here, as we go down this list, these weapons usually turn up in the, let's call them, in the behind the lines, kind of in the second line troop units. For example, if we look at this column here, we go up. This is the medic battalion, right? And these medic battalions, as you can see, had stuff like Czech light machine guns, although these were also used by the normal infantry, Polish BARs, and Russian captured DPs. And they also had here 2 light machine guns, Hotchkiss. I'm not sure if these were used by the commander of the signaling troops. So, for what it's worth. I don't know if these are FM24/29, so if these are actually the earlier World War I type Hotchkiss light machine guns. Not sure here. Usually the FM24/29 is called, I think, MG116F or something like that. So yeah, kind of weird. And then they actually had more, all in all, more light machine guns than they needed, at least in the frontline infantry. In terms of heavy machine guns, they had the normal MG34 and MG42s on Lafette, but also MG34/41s on Lafette, which is maybe something to look at for a future FH2 update, and also normal French heavy Hotchkiss machine guns, including in the line infantry here. So yeah, quite a mix of guns here, including really rare and outdated stuff. Before we carry on, as I mentioned, 28th Jäger Division was also, even though it wasn't the original plan, included in the MKB-42 tests, and we have proof here. This is from the 1st of June 1943. Down here is their weapons, and MP43, they actually received 423 for prototype testing, which is quite a few. So more than double the number of the 5th Jäger Division. So anyway, that was the equipment of the 5th Jäger Division until the end of 1943, basically. In this time frame, much like the 93rd Infantry Division, they were involved in trench combat and holding the line in around Demyansk at first, so basically in rough terrain in forests. So again, the MP43 tests were carried out in those kind of trench warfare, trench raiding conditions. So now we come to kind of the second part of this video, because there's something that always bugged me about Jäger divisions, which is, as I said, we don't have the early TOE for these divisions. We don't know what they were supposed to look like in terms of infantry. I assume, as I said, they were supposed to have more machine pistols than a normal infantry division. And this is actually reinforced by the fact that we do have a completely new Jäger KSDN or TOE for late or starting in December 1943, so basically for 1944 and onward. So they got a new organization for then, which is normal because almost all the German divisions received new organizations at this point, and one of the main points that was changed there is that they changed from the 4-squad structure, which I mentioned earlier, for the platoon to a more familiar 3-squad structure. And the same thing happened also to the Jäger divisions. But their organization in this document is really, really, really weird. So again, I made my own diagram. This is what they were supposed to look like. They basically were supposed to have a lot of submachine guns, namely 83 submachine guns in each company. So this would be one platoon, 3 of them would be in one company. So you now had only the 3 squads, but each of them was almost entirely equipped with 9mm SMGs, and this is completely unusual for German organizations, because at this point they were developing the MP43 and the SDG-44 concept, basically. And in mid to late 1944, lots of new organizations came out with the SDG-44, which I already showed some examples of that. This is the only document that has this many 9mm SMGs, and these were on the way out. These were to be replaced by the assault rifles, and these units actually took part in the tests for these assault rifles, yet they received this organization with weapons that were basically on the way out and already planned to be replaced in production. This always bugged me, because it's so weird. And the same organization apparently was also supposed to be used, for example, by Gebirgsjäger, which is why in Combat Mission, if you play that game, in some of the games, not in all of them, but in some of the games, the Gebirgsjäger have tons of SMGs because of that. Because I think they use this as their guide. Oh yeah, and by the way, it's no mistake that there are no sniper rifles or rifle grenade equipment here or self-loading rifles. They don't show up in this document. It's just kind of baffling. It seems like something that's completely out of left field. So anyway, what I wanted to just check is, did they actually implement this? Did they actually give out these submachine guns in these numbers, even though it's completely against what they were actually doing? Now, I did roughly calculate this, and a division that would be equipped like this, or that was equipped like this, would have at least 3,500 9mm submachine guns. At least, probably more, but yeah, 3,500. So yeah, this would show up in the documents, basically. Alright, and here we are back with 5th Jäger Division, this time at the 1st of February 1945. And as you can see, they are not in a good state here. 48% strength, 45% strength, 49% strength. They don't have 12 or roughly 12 light machine guns anymore, just 6, only 4 in this one, well, no, that's the heavy one, but yeah, only 3 in these. So yeah, they were roughly handled at this point. Still on the Eastern Front, by the way. And yeah, other than that, the artillery is fairly similar. So how many submachine guns did they have? If we look at their actual weapons list here, we have rifles here, self-loading rifles, 101, they got a few more. Only 304 MP38s and MP40s. and 230 Sturmgewehr 44s. They do not list the MKBs anymore. Might there still have been a few that had survived until this point? Possibly. They might have lumped them in with them here if they still had them. That said, the infantry might basically have been destroyed between 1943 and 1945, especially during Operation Bagration. They still had their captured weapons, so there are still the MG26s, still the MG28s, the Polish BARs, and so on. So these are still there. They also had 12 American submachine guns, so probably Thompsons. No idea from where. And also 273 Beretta MPs. So all in all, roughly 570 9mm submachine gun, which is a far cry from the 3,500 they would have needed, plus the SDGs here, I guess. So yeah, I think in this division this was never implemented, this weird organization. I roughly looked at the others as well, because the Germans had quite a few at the end of the war. We will just, as an example, look at one more. Now this is the 101st Jäger Division, also from, in this case, March 1945. I chose this because of the famous 101st American Airborne Division. But yeah, 101st Jäger Division, also roughly handled, although they were a bit more up to strength, but also not many light machine guns left here. This one is pretty close to a full complement in terms of light machine guns. And if we look at their weapons here, K98K, G41, G43, and then here 422 MP38s, MP40s, 68 Berettas, 300 SDGs. Again, my guess is that this TOE that we looked at was just something that existed on paper and was never implemented because it was so weird and kind of stupid. But still quite an interesting thing, or an interesting detail. Generally speaking, I have the impression that these Jäger divisions in late war, in terms of infantry weapons, were probably pretty close to a normal infantry division at this point. The artillery was still maybe a bit different, but in terms of infantry firepower, they were just like a normal infantry division. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something. Have a nice day.